What is up, everybody? It's Mike Capozzi here. Today, I bring you a 40 plus minute video between me and Paco Gamedev having a discussion about game development topics. Paco is an up and coming game dev. He's really awesome. I got to know him on Twitter, and he's one to watch. I figured I would post the video on my channel here. You can check it out here. You can check it out on his channel. He asked me a lot of great questions, and there's a lot in there that you can get about what's coming up in this entire YouTube series as I go along. So if you're curious about some of the things I'm going to talk about, or you guys just want to see me ramble on for 40 minutes, um, you could check it out. So that's it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you, Mike, for taking this invitation for having this interview. It's really great to have you here in the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Yeah, we have been a couple of months in contact with through Twitter. We found each other there, asking some questions, and yeah, it's been when I started these interviews, you were really. I was thinking of having you in here in the channel. So thanks a
Well,
lot
thanks.
for.
I appreciate that, and it was nice talking to you. I think we talked about potentially like what it's like having kids, and hopefully I didn't scare you away too much in our conversations, but we had some good talks about that, and then of course game dev and all that. So yeah,
Yeah, so there are many topics to talk. So yeah, the family, you already have a family, and you're also doing
yeah,
game dev. You have already released a game. So I think you are quite interesting. We can have a quite interesting conversation, and yeah, I
yeah.
think a lot of people can benefit about with this conversation.
I think so. I mean, from me, from my side of things, when I looked at other YouTube videos and stuff, I was looking for that, and I found it in a couple of people who had kids and who still did it. Because when I started, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'd love to be a game dev, but I got a kid, you know. And then I had two kids. I'm like, I'm done. There's no way. And that wasn't the case. Actually, it was the opposite. So yeah, it's good that the more of these, the better, I think. So
Right.
hopefully people see it and think they can do it too.
Yeah, I think if they can look at your example, maybe other people are in the same situation. And
Yeah.
when they look to your example, then you can encourage other people to do it. So I think that it's going to be great.
I hope so,
Good
right?
people. Yeah, nice. So, Mike, tell me, yeah, maybe a bit about yourself. Yeah,
Sure.
okay, maybe a bit background of you. You have already released a game. You have a full-time job. You have already released a game in Mystic
Hmm.
Hammer, and
Yes.
also you have a family, two kids. So, if you can tell us about your background, where you're
Yeah.
from,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm Mike Capozzi from Posey Soft, a company I created just for mostly game development. And yeah, my full-time job was started as a software developer, like maybe 10 years ago. So I don't want to scare people off and say, oh no, you have to be a software developer. You really don't. I was a web developer. Not all that really transitioned over to game dev. I still started kind of from square one, but the advantage I would have would probably be about logic and thinking that way. But then, really recently, the last 5 years, I've been a manager, so I'm not really in the code that much. I mean, I am for some of the older apps that I wrote, but when it comes to the new stuff, I'm falling behind. I mean, technology, especially with programming, you fall behind quick, and if you're
Yeah.
not on top of it, you fall out. So I kind of pivoted over to game development a bit on my own time, and it was awesome. I always knew I wanted to do that. But as far as the family, the kids, yeah, I've been married for 10 years. I have two kids, both under 5. So they're a handful. It's weird. It's like there's two worlds. There's a world when you have kids and you say
Hmm.
handful, and then the other world when you're watching that, you hear handful. And I won't let's not make this video about that because it'll just scare the whole world off. But I'm very honest about that. I think that's the difference. Like a lot of people, when I talk to their parents, are like, oh yeah, they're special. It's good. You have to do it. If you love kids, it's great. Do it. And like, there's just like no downside. You just hear it's great, it's good, and you're like, well, my experience will be like that. We had a rough experience. It was rough, and there's a lot to it. But putting all that aside for a second, and the craziness that goes along with it, yeah, the two kids, the having to have the day job to hold everything together and then do this. I don't want to say hobby. It was a hobby. It starts as a hobby,
Okay,
and
so
then
it
all of
started
a
as a
sudden
hobby.
it becomes real.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like the source of income. You hear all the stories, right? It's
Hmm.
like, you're not going to make any money at all. You can't
Yeah.
rely on it. You're not going to quit your job tomorrow. And I actually, the other part of it, I'm from the East Coast, in the United States.
Okay.
So I grew up in New York. And it's expensive to live
Mm.
around this area. So it's like you have to make a lot from a day job. You have to use a lot to live here.
Yeah,
And
I
then
have
there's
heard
game
that.
dev, which
Uh-huh.
you start selling stuff, you're just like, well, what could I do with that? It's like you can't really make it work at first, but I can talk about this later and I'll talk about it on my channel, but like expectations, right? Like knowing what it is you expect out of it and setting yourself up for the right success. If you just want to be a millionaire, of course, it's like, okay, maybe later, but that's not your first goal.
Yeah, I think that's
So
not a correct goal to start with, right?
yeah, you'll get there, right? You'll
Yeah.
get to that goal later, but how about selling like $1, right? $1. I mean, that was the dream initially, and I know I'm going all over the place now, but that
Oh,
was the
that's
dream.
perfect. That's part of this. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I ramble. I'm sure, but it's like the goal was like I was like, if I can make a game and just get it on a store, that was
Hmm.
it. Like, imagine getting on Steam. How cool would that be? That was it. That was the only thing. And now I'm like upset if I don't have a certain amount of sales or don't have this or
Mm.
that. But like, what happened to my first goal? It's gone.
Yeah.
The new one was, what if I could sell this? But not just to a friends or family, but someone who doesn't know me. Like that's the goal, for like $1, right? So then that happened, of course, and it wasn't $1. It was like, so we went from there. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, I sold it to somebody who's not even in this country, who doesn't know me,
Yeah.
who bought it at the full price and loved it and didn't, review bomb it into the ground or return it. And then it became like, what if 10 people bought it? That's what I have to do. And I wasn't consciously making goals. Like you should, I think you should write it down on a piece of paper and put it on your
Mm.
wall. But it was just it just happens naturally every phase. And then you constantly forget, you get all, you start saying, oh yeah, I want this next thing. And I'm a disappointment. I'm a failure because I don't have 10,000 sales, 100,000. It just keeps growing into that. But it's funny how all that starts. So all that is to say, I started by just saying, I'd love to just make a game, right? Just
Mm.
get a game finished, and that has been part of my journey. But yeah, you asked about the family and the day job, and I
Let's
went
go.
into
We
the
can
other ones.
go by parts, and yeah, we got now the overall picture.
Yeah,
But maybe with that, how and why you started with game dev? Because
yeah,
you said at the beginning you had some goals, but then why you got into this industry?
yeah. It's a good question. So I always wanted to. That's a
Hmm.
lifelong, and not everybody's like that. That's okay. It doesn't mean you have to be born and say, I just want to make games. But I know I wanted to do it since I was young because uh, for me, it started. I was at my uncle's house. It was probably like, I want to say I was 8 or 10 years old. It was something where it was like way too young to be doing this.
Hmm.
And he had to go to work and he left me there with my grandmother who didn't speak English. She spoke Italian and I didn't know what she was saying
Ah,
except for,
your background is Italian.
it is, yeah.
Ah,
I don't
nice.
I don't speak Italian, but I speak a little bit of little bit of Spanish, but not Italian.
Okay.
But my grandmother, 100%. So all I understood was like the words for like cheese or ice cream or food or
Hmm.
eat, and that was it.
Nice.
So yeah, he left a book of like visual. What was it? It was like it was Visual Basic Programming, but I don't remember what the purpose was, what he was doing with it. But he never read it. And it's a lot of books I have. I don't even open them. But for me, a kid, I was like bored, and I thought, what would be cool is if I could impress them by reading this book. It had nothing to do with gaming. It was just application development.
Okay.
And I started just plugging away at the keys, and I don't know how I did it at that age, but somehow I made a little video game, a little like the typical adventure text game, but then you can click buttons and the
Hmm.
buttons like turn right, turn left. You encounter an orc, click here to attack, and that's all it was. But he stayed out really late. He came home at like 2 in the morning, and that's something my parents would never let me do. I mean, there's no way. But my parents weren't here, and my grandma was sleeping, so I just kept going.
Yeah, you
He
kept
came
going.
home and he was like so mad.
Uh-huh.
He's like, "Oh, you're up," but then when he saw what I did, he's like, "I don't know if I should yell at you or be happy with what you did."
Uh-huh.
He's like, "How did this kid make this little game or something?" So I always knew I would want to make games because I always like playing games.
Hmm.
It was that simple. So since Nintendo, it's always been play the games, be cool to make one, but how do you even do that? And then I haven't reapproached it since from that point until like college. And then I said, okay, I got to go to college, so I got to figure out what am I going to do for game development. So two paths at the time. I thought it was basically you go for programming or you go for art.
Mm.
Um, and what I did was I did art, not for college. I did a bachelor's degree in computer science, but I did art as like 3D Studio Max back then, 3D art, and I loved doing that. It was little like cinematic stuff, and just I didn't do so much modeling. I kind of just took other people's stuff, like it was a TIE fighter for Star Wars, and I animated it. I put sound to it, and I would make like these other little music videos and I love doing it, but I couldn't draw. So I'm like, I'm not an artist. So I didn't
Mm.
know if you needed to draw for that. So I wanted to go to school. The only experience I thought I had was with art. I had a leg up on it. And I kicked my own butt. I said, you know what? Let me do the harder thing. I think computer science will be harder, which means it's probably going to be worth more. So I left all the art behind, no game development, just,
Just
complete,
programming, hardcore
just
programming.
exactly, just programming. And it was like I wasn't great at it either. I kind of just went through college doing, getting through college, just forcing myself to get through the math and the physics of everything. And it was like tough. It wasn't easy. I wasn't a straight A student. Um, and I left the game development thing behind. I just
Mm.
didn't do it until, maybe senior year. I was on my laptop in some classes and I'm like, oh, I want to make a Flash game or something. I had all these ideas. And then tons of ideas, like everybody. We have all these, and then but no execution. Like I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't finish anything either. Most people can't, and that's okay. But could not could not do that. So that was like I'm 20, 22, 23 years old. I had this development job, my day job,
Mm.
and it's been 13 years of just that. And then what reignited me this past year, about a year, about no, actually 2 years ago almost, was like some tutorials. I've done little tutorials here and there
Mm.
about quick, how to do this, how to do that, whatever. But like full, well, you know now at
Yeah,
this
going
point,
in full into game dev.
yeah. I mean, just to mention, Game Dev TV is the one I did, and the one
Mm.
you're doing too,
Yeah,
right?
I'm doing that. Well, maybe that's another topic to talk. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
we can get into that
Yeah.
separately, but it's funny. I think you're doing the only tutorial I haven't done. I'm doing the opposite of you, but I did those like the 2D ones, and it's weird. I said I was going to complete that first course. I did, and I had this weird contract with myself in my head. I don't know why I
Mm-hmm.
did this. I said, Mike, you're not allowed to watch another tutorial
Mm.
until you release a game, and I that's probably not advise everybody do that. But for some reason, because I said to myself I don't want to get paralyzed in like what is it, analysis paralysis, just
Yeah,
you're
the analysis
constantly in a
paralysis
cycle.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not really doing anything, so I didn't want to do that like and just get lost. So I said I'm just going to finish this. It's going to be a certain scope and I'm going to get it done. It's way too long. 18 months was how long it took to do it, but about 3 or 4 months because of the pandemic I had to just stop. It was really bad. The kids were home.
Mm.
It was like too crazy. So 3 months were off. So figure about 14 to 16 months of development with everything else going on. And I didn't watch another tutorial. I kept that promise. Unless I needed it. It's something small, fine. If you're stuck, that's okay. Go on
Yeah.
YouTube, but no series, no beginning to end. No, I'm going to just follow along. I'm just going to take it to the end. So
Yeah,
that
just
that's kind
doing
of
it.
how it happened. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that it's important to switch from learning mode also to do mode to
Right.
really start doing it and also learning by doing instead of only watching. I think that's the
Right.
approach you
Absolutely.
took instead of watching only the tutorials, right?
Oh yeah, big difference. And some tutorials have you do more while you're doing it, which is good. They stop and say, "Here, try this." But others are just like, "Type this code." I type the code, it works. And then you go to do it yourself. It's like blank page. You just freeze. That's gonna happen all the time. It happens to me now. You just freeze. Like, oh my God, imposter syndrome. I don't belong here. I can't do this. But then you get over it.
And also, I read because also you wrote an article for the game dev blog. I
I
saw
did.
your article, and also you talked that I think that's a really nice concept that it's related to this. That you look for not having a 0 day, meaning that
Yes.
you at least that you want to that you work at least one thing in your game one
Mhm.
day, and then in that way you are making progress.
Yes, and by all means, that's not my idea. I've heard it before. I'm just propagating it out that that's what I did, and that is, and I don't remember, how which a couple of people had said that in different ways, but one of them that struck me is like it doesn't have to mean like a 1 hour day or one line of code. Even it could be like it could be anything, and that's how I took in the heart. Um, there's an extreme to it where you can consider like, well, I was upstairs, I never got to the computer, but in my head, I thought of the next thing I'm going to do. That's okay too. I mean, for me, I tried to rule that out because then I'd fall back on, I just thought all day and I didn't actually do anything. So as long as I got to the computer, opened it, and did one thing, then I was set. Like I did something that day. And I won't go into this whole other topic, but the anxiety, the wall of anxiety, I know when I
Mm.
sit down, I think a lot of people probably have that. Getting past that zero is harder than I would have thought. Like
Yeah.
just doing something sometimes is like, I don't want to. Like I love, love, love doing it. I do have a passion when I'm doing it, but for some reason, I can't get into it because I think it's like this terrible thing. It's work, it's bad. I can't do it, and it's going to be horrible. And like, I don't have the time, whatever. As soon as I start typing, it's like I can't stop. I can't go to sleep. I can't, all that starts snowballing. So it's getting past that anxiety
Yeah.
wall, getting past the zero, and then you made progress. So that's good.
And then at the end, yeah, little by little, little making this progress, and at the end, you can release your game, right?
Right. That's the
And
end
how
goal.
was that experience of releasing your game?
It's crazy. It was crazy, as everyone would say. I will say the best advice I can give is so marketing. I knew up front, everyone's like, you have to market while you're
Hmm.
doing it, and it takes a lot of time. And I tried, but I tried in the wrong places for me, and
Hmm.
everyone's different.
Yeah.
So I won't put anything down or for in general, but for me, I started kind of more on the Reddit side without
Hmm.
knowing much of the Reddit.
I
I don't want to say
uh-huh.
what's that?
No, I read that also that you also tried the Reddit side.
Oh, yeah.
Man, those guys in Reddit are brutal sometimes, right?
Yeah, okay. Thanks for saying it. I didn't want to. They're brutal and they're great people and it's good community. And like some subreddits are better communities than
Yeah.
others, and I mesh well with some and not others. That's how it is. And there's rules, and you can't really advertise on there.
Hmm.
They even smell advertisement, you're out. Like they just get out of here. Uh, but I guess what I didn't understand is I'd be like, hey guys, check out what I'm working on. It's my first game, and I'd have a little something and like within a few minutes there's no comment but there's a downvote
Yeah.
and I'm like, who hates me?
the
What did I
same the
do?
same happens to me.
Yeah, it's like, why is it, I don't understand, like why do so many people hate me without knowing me?
Yeah.
And you know I've heard different theories. There's people who just downvote because they're in a bad mood, or downvote because I don't believe this that much, but downvote because they just posted something and they want theirs to rise to the top. I don't think I doubt that happens too much, but maybe. Or they randomly do it. Sometimes I get random upvotes too. So I've learned not to put too much stake in that.
Hmm.
And I tried to be authentic as possible, and that's the thing. I never wanted to come out there and not be authentic.
Right.
And then I discovered Twitter, and I
Yeah.
was authentic. I wasn't even so much showing. Well, I do show what I do all the time,
Hmm.
which I feel free to do so. I just feel like it's okay to
Yeah.
say, here's what I'm working on now. But I was like myself in that I found this other personality, and this happened 3 months before release or so. So
Hmm.
it was late in the game for me in the whole year, but it opened up everything because it was like, I had these same 4 or 5 Twitter followers, and I was never on Twitter. And I was like, I could never get to 100, right? And I'm like, well, why not? Maybe I can. And when I got to 100 followers, it was like, oh my gosh, like how did 100 people care about what I'm doing? Like,
Yeah.
and on Reddit, I still have that one follower, I believe. So it's like, how does this happen? Then it was 200, and it came so much faster than 100. It was
Hmm.
like, and all I'm doing is like talking, like, and then I realized I can interact with other people. It's not about me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like an advertising. It's about, hey, what are you doing, and what can I learn from you? And that's what happened. I just started talking to people, and half the people were just like streamers saying something about like, you ever feel like this? And I talk about, yeah, I feel like that too, and whatever. You just connect with people,
Nice.
and it doesn't have to be only game developers. It was some artists, some YouTubers, some streamers, and that's it. It just, that part of marketing seemed to work out much better for me. Now, did that convert to any sales? I don't really know. I have some
Hmm.
things that show people from Twitter looked in, wish listed it, but then beyond that, did they convert a couple months later? It's really hard to tell. But I just know I feel at home there, and I feel like there's this
Nice.
little family. And
I
yeah,
think
that's
yeah,
good, and
it's
that's how
part
we
of
met. So
social community that it's there. and you
Yeah.
have been social there, and that has helped you to build a small community. Well, it's not small anymore. I think you have grown your following there.
Yeah, it's getting
Like,
bigger. Yeah,
yeah, it's getting
16,
bigger.
1,500 followers or something. It's getting bigger. So
Nice. Glad to hear that.
yeah, and the funny, there's some memes about it, right? But and it's a little awkward, but I'll just say it. Like it's like
Mhm.
the memes are about you selling your game. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go get a community, and what do you have? You have 1,500 game devs, not gamers,
Yeah.
not your people, not your audience, but game devs. And it's like, huh, well, that happened, but we are gamers. We're all gamers, so it
Yep.
does work out still, and we all have each other's backs, and that is, their friends are gamers. So I tend to think that that works okay. But in reality, the right way to do it, which I didn't do, was
Hmm.
finding the audience targeting. Marketing is not just showing your exposure to everybody. It's sort of getting that one area specifically where you're supposed to be. For me, for Mr. Camera, that was Plants vs Zombies, but I can never get. It's hard to find where are these people, right? Everyone's like, you just got to find them. I'm like, yeah, but where are they? Like, okay, they're out there. There's boards. There's some fan sites or whatever, but yeah, okay, they're there, but I don't have their email. I'm not going to go into their fan site and start
Yep.
spamming my game. So it's always weird that way. I'd rather just talk about the game, see if it creates buzz, and talk to other game developers. That's been the path.
That's been the bad.
Um, yeah.
And no,
So
then nice, and yeah, that you have also the back from other game devs, and also they're supporting you, and you're supporting other ones.
yeah, and whether supporting or acting like they're supporting, it feels good. It feels like there's something to fall back on. Um, it's like friends and family too, right? Like it's nice, but I never wanted to rely on it because everyone's going to say everything you do is great. They're not going to criticize it. They're going to be like, oh, good job. I've known you since you're a baby. It's great. Like, so I've kind of put that aside. With this, and maybe it's similar for all I know. It could be just like, oh, you're just so awesome because I like you, but in reality, like, I ain't buying that game. Like, but it's okay. They're there, and it does feel like a community. It makes you feel kind of safe to, and that's what creates the buzz because they share it sometimes and they like it sometimes. And yeah, I've mostly talked about the marketing, but
Yeah.
beyond that's kind of what a lot of it is. Once you get to that
Hmm.
final stage of pushing the button, telling everybody you're pushing the button and what you're going to do and how you plan to do it. That has been, I guess the reason I go into that is it was so time consuming, and
Hmm.
people have warned about that. But I was even away from the computer on my phone, on Twitter, constantly like, is this an opportunity? Someone's talking about this, a game convention or thinking that, someone's about publisher. Like, what do I do? What do I say? How do I get noticed? How do I,
Okay.
and it becomes this thing, I hate it. It's like, oh, well, this person has this many followers. And if I'm like, talk to them and, it's like, you don't want to like pander to everybody, but at the same time, you want to just be involved with everybody. And the more people I follow, the better. It's not about my own followers, but who I'm following, because my feed does look like nothing but game development all day. And I love it. That's great. I feel like everything's going on and I'm in it. So that helped. And then lastly, I'll just mention the game festival for Steam was
Hmm.
very helpful. That got a lot of wish lists. Like half of the whole wish list came from that, which was in autumn. And you just apply to be, if you're in a certain release window,
Hmm.
you apply to it, you go on it. And I streamed for the first time. I was never streamed anything. Put the camera on and played during the festival, and a couple of people downloaded a demo.
Ah,
They liked
nice.
it, and then I think later that really helped out. But it was awakening the game from being in like this slump for a while with not a lot of wish lists for a couple months. It was great boost. So yeah, that was a lot of the release was about the marketing, get the word out there,
Hmm.
and then not thinking about the crunch for the game
Hmm.
until it becomes the crunch for the game. And maybe that's why it becomes the crunch. It's like all of a sudden, like, wait, I have to finish this. Like I did, but my scope was too far. I mean, I put
Hmm.
50 levels in the game. I probably didn't need to because I found that people didn't get past level 30. They do, but rarely. So it's like, what did I do? But I kept going and I said I have to get to 50. It's a nice round number. It's good for saying I got 50 levels.
Hmm.
And then I was there like, and my wife put up with a lot because it was a lot of me whining, like, oh no, the game, it's gonna suck, it's gonna be this, that, like a lot of negativity, and then you have to try and push that out, but it just keeps coming back.
Nice. So you also on the family side, you had also that support that was important for you.
Yeah, so a lot of people I think will say that, and
Hmm.
I will say I'm on the fence. So it's like that comes out Like you feel like it's like a speech, like you won an award. You say, I'd like to thank, my support, my family, why everyone was there for me every step of the way. It was a fight. It was a battle. She was definitely there for me. That's
Ah,
true.
nice.
But it wasn't 100%. And
Mm,
the reason it wasn't like, with the kids, it's so hard because how many nights am I going to try and just go downstairs and get on the computer and say, I'm going to do game dev and you take care of both kids. But then, one of them's getting a tooth or there's something going through something or they're sick and they're waking up at 3 in the morning. And
mm,
how many times can I expect her to do that? I'm going to pay the price tomorrow. And I would, because it would be like, she can't sleep. She has to take a nap. Now I have to do this, but I have my day job, so I can't do that.
yeah.
So then I have to put it off till after the day job. And now it's like dinner, then it's bath, then it's bed. So if eventually it'll just cause a collapse. So there's give and take. And of that, I'll say there were times where like there was the pivotal points where it's like this is time sensitive on Twitter, there's something going on and someone's
Mm,
like, show us what you're working on and we'll put it in this or put it in that, or and I had to do it and I would like kind of have to fight. It was the worst time to do it, but I would fight for it. I would get it. It was very give and take. So definitely thank you. She did a great job. It was awesome. And she was supportive overall, a net support. But I guess when people hear it, because when I heard it, it was always like, oh, my wife or my girlfriend, it's going to be like full support mode where it's like,
mm.
you do you, hun. And, you're just going to do nothing but game dev the whole time.
No,
And that isn't what
that's the
happened to
other
me.
side. It's not so real, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it might be for others. Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't for me. And without kids, I'll say it probably could be
Mm,
because you could cut out, say, okay, 3 hours a night. You get that every day. Don't
mm,
worry about spending time with me. We won't watch our shows. We're good. Not that that's all that happens. I think for us it wasn't. But when it's with the kids, it's so much. She has a full-time job too, and that's the other thing. I mean, there's people with kids that their husband or wife doesn't work full-time, but both full-time with kids.
yeah, that's challenging. Can imagine.
Yeah, it's challenging, and I would have never thought it could happen. For some reason, I think that lack of time causes some sense of urgency where it just works out. I don't know how I did that. I still don't, and it's
Mm,
like because I don't have the time, and I keep saying I don't, but I did somehow. And I think it's just you make the time, and the efficiency of that time becomes vital. There is nothing else you're doing but exactly what you need to do,
mhm.
and when you run into problems you don't always cut corners, but I think that's important to know when to. And it's another topic for another day, but
Yeah.
knowing when to cut the corners and stuff like that.
That's a really different topic. Yeah, that's also another topic
Yeah.
to talk. But yeah, I can. Yeah, that was another question. That how you managed to continue working on your game, all the marketing, all the technical side, programming it, and also having your family. So it was taking advantage of every time that you had free.
Pretty much. Yeah, and at night it was I would stay up late and I borrowed it from sleep. That was it. And
Mm,
that's kind of an obvious answer. Is like I had to wake up no matter what. If a kid's up, I'm up. Like, and if not, I'll hear them. So there's no nothing I can do. So I would say I'm gonna go to sleep at 11, and then it would be 2 hours, it would be one, and I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And then the panic
yeah.
sets in. Um, Anxiety is a whole other topic, but there was a lot of anxiety. It was a lot of like I can't sleep because I'm seeing numbers, I'm seeing code, I'm seeing
Mm,
all this in my head, and it's tough to get to sleep, and stuff to stay asleep. So yeah, I would lack sleep. It roll over into the next day, and 3 or 4 days would be lack of sleep, and then all of a sudden I'd have this day where like I just have to collapse into sleep somehow, and that became its own complicated topic. But the arrangements I had were kind of broken sometimes. It'd be like, okay,
mhm,
I'm going to go to sleep early tonight. And that way, don't worry, I'll get up with my daughter if she gets up. And I didn't. I failed. I broke that.
mm,
But I took ownership of it because when she did wake up, I would still get up with her. It wasn't that I would just lie and then say, oh, can you do it now? Like I still did it, but I punished myself. So a lot of it was nights and taking that time at night to make it work. There really is no other time because, and weekends are I remember when weekends were fun. They are, but it's like it used to be this relief of your job's done for the week if you're full time. Not everybody
mhm,
is, but I was full time. So okay, now it's the weekend. There's no it's the transition is okay, the kids are home all week because they go to daycare. I should mention that when I keep saying home or not home, we do have
mm,
them in daycare. It's extremely expensive, which makes it that we have to work even more.
mm, yeah.
Not complaining, it's just that's the cycle of
Yeah.
things if you want two full-time parents. So they're home all weekend. So it's like, you love them, we play, but it's like you run out of things to do after a while, and you're just like, huh, what are we gonna do now? So the other thing I did was I constantly, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I would play. I talked about this in that blog article
Mhm.
for the Game Dev TV. You talk about, I was like, in my head, I'm like, uh, I'm playing with my son, and I'm always in there. Like, I don't want to be that father who's like just like play like fake plays, like, oh, that's nice. I want to be in the moment. Like, okay, I'm a warrior here. This is my sword and shield. We're fighting with these, or superheroes. Like, I'm part of it, or there's a little storyline going on. So I try and do that. And with the game dev, I found sometimes it was hard because I mean, sometimes kids, I think they're okay with whatever you're doing, right? Like they're just like, oh, they're playing with me. That's great. I don't know if my dad ever knew what I was doing. I was like, so, by the way, let me know if my cat in the background, I don't know if she's making noise or something, but if she jumps up,
Uh, that's fine.
nothing.
Yeah, I cannot hear.
Okay.
I cannot. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Um,
don't hear her. Uh-huh.
I have a cat too. Yeah.
Nice.
But so yeah, and I forgot what I was saying. But oh, the kids. Yeah, so I was like playing with the kids, and like in my mind, I was trying to half remember how we're playing here, but in my mind, I'm just like, okay, cool. We're gonna have a level up system. I'm gonna
Yeah.
build this later. There's gonna be stats, and and then that's what I do. At work, I focus, but sometimes everybody has that moment where you're just kind of drifting off. Well, instead of drifting off and thinking about a beach, I
Mm.
just replace that with what's the next thing my game's gonna have.
Yeah,
And
some ideas that pop up in that moment
yes,
that okay, maybe I can add this to my game, this feature, or maybe this is not going to work.
that's right. And I'm sure you've had it too. I'm sure,
Yeah,
you're
sometimes like
eating or
that. Yeah.
thinking, and sometimes I want to run away. Like if I'm eating dinner, I just want to run downstairs and go do it, but I wasn't able to. And I'm like, what was I doing in college, after college? I'm like, I had time, I had it, but I couldn't harness that power until I didn't have it. And now all of a sudden I harnessed it. So still a very weird thing. But anyway, so I would say that's kind of how I managed it. Nights and thinking in my head while I was doing everything else during the day, and then sitting down and making sure I'm executing exactly what I've already planned in my mind that night.
Nice,
So
and all the hard work paid off at the beginning, at the end. So
at
that
the end
was
it did.
pretty
And
cool.
I like, everybody's an aspiring game dev. That's the thing. And this isn't my original thought. I've heard this too, that like, just say you're a game. If you're developing a game, you're a game dev. It's okay. You're a game developer. Like you're not aspiring this or that. Like you don't have to. But like, let's be honest. I was telling myself inside, like, come on, man. What are you doing? This is not, you're not a game developer. Um, but if I released a game, I said, no one's going to take that away from me. And not that everyone's trying, but I guess in my negative mind, I'm always like, everyone's putting me down, but nobody was. Um, that I kept putting myself down. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this.
Yeah,
But
probably
if I
that's the
do
thing,
it,
right? That people are fear of the judgment of other people,
yes,
and at the end, you are yourself that you're pushing down
yes,
yourself.
the worst. You're the worst person to yourself. I know there's got to be more people out there like that. And all I could say to them is you set your goal. Um, if you could finish it, if you could somehow get it done, it doesn't have to sell. You have to just have it out there and know
Yeah.
that you didn't. And if you have 30 projects and you don't finish any, you're still a game developer. It's okay. There's a you don't have to be like a commercial game developer you've sold. You don't have to be a AAA game studio. You have to work for
True.
one.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't work for a AAA game studio. I'm an indie game dev, whatever. Like I am that because I did that. But releasing it was the extra little special thing for me that I would stop yelling at myself, and I did. It was like when I released it, the negativity turned into all the everything. Okay, it's not selling enough. It's not working. No one sees it. It's hard, whatever. But it's so important to reflect back on where you started, and it's like, hey man, like 2 years ago, I didn't know how to do any game dev at all. Like that's it. I didn't know anything. And now I did this. Like, so when you compare, you have to put in perspective, and that makes a big difference. But yes, releasing it was success that no one could take away because I still don't know who I think was going to take it away other than me, but people saying to you like, I don't know, oh, that game's missing this, missing that, or did you create everything, every pixel? Did you make all the music and sound yourself? Um, and the answer now can be like, well, where I don't know, how was your game? To people who don't even do game development, like, oh wait, you didn't release an actual product. I did, and that's the thing. I can say that to myself. I can say it to others.
Yeah.
You could be proud of that a little bit. I mean, I don't go around like telling everybody running around town, but I mean, when it comes up, which it doesn't, by the way, because people are just happy for you. It's not even nobody was trying to put you down to begin with except yourself. So,
Yeah.
um, and I don't know. Again, I don't want to keep jumping into these big other topics, but I hinted there. I didn't make every single part of the game. Like there are asset packs. If you use them all, you can end up with a circus. But if you know when or how to use them
Hmm.
properly, it's kind of how you can make it work, and that's okay. So I
Yeah,
had
because you
some of that in
cannot
my
do
game.
everything by yourself. You have also to know which resources you can take
Yeah.
and then put them together. That's also part of the magic of putting everything together, integrating, and making also a good game with that.
That's right. And also, I should mention it's not just like asset packs. I didn't really have a whole lot of that. I had some of it, but I used Fiverr. I went on Fiverr.com and I was like talking to people, like
Hmm.
seeing who would do what, and I'd find an artist. And I didn't work with an artist on it. Like I didn't have a team really, but I would do one-off jobs to say, can you make a background?
Yeah.
Because the background's detailed, I can't do environments.
Hmm.
And yeah, I found people to do that. They charged me X dollars. And then next time I said, can you do another one? Because then I have another 10 levels or 5 levels and I can make a whole new area for my game. And that's
Hmm.
how you put the pieces together. And you kind of have, without, because you need money in a studio if you're going to do anything. And since it's not going to happen, just little at a time, chipping away. And then my budget's going low. I stop. Like I can't do it for a while. Then later I want to change. I could do something different. So that's kind of how I pieced it together there, little by little.
Nice. So maybe some recommendations that you can give to new game developers that are still on the process of releasing their first game. What can you tell to them?
I could say your assets, there's programmer art, they call it, just like placeholder art. You could do that. You could throw whatever you want in there. Just make sure if you put like Mickey Mouse, you take it out, anything obvious, like so Disney doesn't sue you. No, but like you could do all that. But even if you don't, you could go to the next level and you can get an asset pack, in Unity or Unreal, or buy something from someone or go on Fiverr or something like that and look for someone to make it, and then you can even tell yourself it's placeholder art. It's probably not you're going to release with it, but it's okay because you could always go back to it. But you're done, and in your mind you can move on. So now you could talk functionality. You could do something cool with it. As long as you don't have limitations on what you got. Like if you got something you just can't animate, or you got something you hit a wall, that's
Yeah.
probably a problem. But otherwise, you could just get whatever. Make sure it looks good, it meshes well. Maybe understand a little bit about that because, and I still don't. I'm not great with it, but making sure it looks good together and it doesn't look all out of whack.
Hmm.
And then modify when you can, and that's it. Just keep it like that. And I say when you can because there are licenses you could have something or free assets that you can just download, like Open
Yeah.
Game Arts, I think it is. And there are licenses you got to be careful. You can't modify, but anything CC0 you could use as public domain. I tried to stay away from too many of that mostly because I lose track of where I got everything from. So the beginning of my game, I had a lot of those assets, and I had this credits.txt file that would just list everybody, making sure everybody gets recognition. And right before launch, I made it my goal in life to shrink that list. Not that I don't want to give people credit, but I want to take their placeholder stuff out and put real stuff.
Hmm.
And I did that, and it was one at a time. I would find real stuff instead of what I had there. And theirs was great, but I wanted to make it mix better. And then towards the end, as far as music, I had like 10 different tracks by 10 different artists that were
Hmm.
all public domain, and I had to get away from that. So I had somebody who worked with me and didn't end up getting all of it done. It's not fair. I didn't give him enough time to finish, but he got a lot of it done, and we shrunk it down to where I only had two artists to give credit to for 2 songs, and the rest he kind of did the rest of the soundtrack, and then that made it manageable. So
Nice.
I would advise just taking what you need to get through, because what you don't want is you're spending so much time on every little pixel on something,
Yeah.
or you're pulling up an iPad to try and make all the music yourself. Unless you're inclined or that's what your background is. Like with me, none of my stuff with programming came from anywhere because I figured if I'm a programmer, that's
Yeah.
one thing I should be able to bring to the table. So
And you enjoy doing it, right? You enjoy the programming side.
I do. It's funny. In my day job, I kind of stopped like enjoying. I kind of enjoy it sometimes, but it's kind of
Hmm.
annoying. You're squashing bugs all the time. But
Hmm.
when it comes to game dev programming, I do enjoy it. Yeah, I would say overall, I'm just enjoying getting in there and doing it.
So you have the
So
possibility to go back instead of, yeah, in your day job, you're on the management side, but then
Yeah.
you go game dev, and you can go back to the programming.
That's a good point because if I wasn't managing, I probably wouldn't love the developing all day, both things. I kind of
Mm.
have a break from it by managing. So that's true. But yeah, it's and I know there's people out there who hate programming, hate it. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's also
And
fine. I
yeah,
think I released some videos that instead of programming you can do visual scripting, and that's
yeah.
also fine. So yeah,
I
it's
saw
there's
those in the
possibility
past
for
interview.
everyone.
The past interview was great, by the way, to see too that like you could totally do the visual programming route and be
Yeah,
successful and have game releases. So that was cool to see. Yeah.
nice. Um, Finally, you're creating your YouTube channel, right?
I am, yes. By the time this goes up, it better be something for you guys to go to. No, but
Nice,
I'm working on that. Yeah.
nice. By the time this goes up, we'll put the links here,
Yes, please.
uh,
Yes.
so yeah, people
Yeah. Well,
can go into your channel. And
yep.
also maybe some to wrap things up. Maybe how can people come in contact with you?
Sure. You can get me at Posysoft on Twitter. That's POZZISOFT. I mean, probably down here
Yeah, I
somewhere
will
you're gonna
put
put
it
it.
around here.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be overlaid. Okay, right
Yeah,
here.
I will put it. Yeah.
Awesome. And then on YouTube, I guess you just search for Posysoft. It's out there now. The channel's already up, but all I've done on is old stuff, so I'm probably gonna take some of those videos down. If you
Mm.
get there quick enough, you might be able to see them. They're just me back in the day before I had a good microphone, going through stuff, me
Mm.
excited about like, look, I have a new paladin class. Look what I did, and like things like
Uh,
that. So so
nice.
yeah, going forward, it'll be more of game dev, and my adventures into 3D. I am
Mhm.
working on a new game, which I'll make a little announcement video of that, but 3D, not 2D, finally. And also Blender, just loving that lately. I don't know
Ah,
if you saw any of
true.
that stuff.
Yeah, I have seen that you have working on the Blender course. Ah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's another topic. The game dev courses. You also that was also your, let's say, your ignition to continue working on the game dev, right?
yes. Yep, all by the same. And by the way, I should mention about as far as goals. Before I was saying with the goals, I never had this goal, but this is my number one achievement. I think beyond releasing a game. I
Mhm.
don't know much about that game dev TV. I'm not part of them. Nothing to do with them.
Hmm.
The reason I even say them is it was just a tutorial I used. But when they
Yeah.
reached out to me and said, "Would you write a blog on our?" I thought they meant like on my blog. They're like, "No, on our blog." I'm like on
Hmm.
your blog? I'm like, wait, what do you want me to write about? And they're like, you. And I'm like, me? Like, no one cares about me. So I wrote that thing. And that's the
Uh-huh.
basis for the whole YouTube channel is kind of like all those little sections. I kind of want to do a
Mhm.
video on each section of
Yeah, I
text.
think that would be great, and it will help a lot of people if you can do some videos with each section. You
Yeah.
can provide a lot of value to people.
I,
So that's
I
a great
think I hope
idea.
so. I mean, the main reason I'm even doing it is when I submitted that, again, I was like, who cares, right? But I got messages from random people, Twitter, just a couple, not a whole lot, but a couple that were just like, hey, I don't know you, just letting you know, you changed my life. I'm gonna do games, I'm gonna release a game. And that was it. Like I wanted to keep
Yeah,
talking. It was like they just
nice.
didn't want to like bother me. I'm like, you could bother me, you could talk to me, I'm approachable. So yeah, anybody want to reach out to me at any point, don't hesitate. I'm fine with that. The DM's
Great.
open, I believe, is the saying.
And that's the way we got into contact. Kind of, yeah,
That's right.
yeah. It was
Yeah.
before you released your blog with the game dev people, but yeah, it's great that you're really approachable, and yeah, it's
And I think you're my Instagram sensei because I'm terrible on Instagram, but I saw you on there and I watch your stuff on there. So it's like, yeah, you got to teach me more about that platform.
thanks. Yeah, trying to explore different platforms, how it works, each of them. It's a
Uh-huh.
bit different for all of them, so yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One day
Nice.
we'll both get Reddit somehow. We'll both
Yeah.
figure it out.
So-
So yeah.
Right, Mike. Yeah, maybe if there was something that I didn't ask that you wanted to share, anything else before we close?
I don't think so. Let's see, I made my own little list here just in case I missed anything. But no, it's kind of like that's it. It's so funny. My notes are just like lack of sleep, late nights. It's like two word because if you ever put notes, if you write too much, you're not going to read it. So yeah,
Yeah,
but I think we got through everything that's important.
yeah, I
And
think we got through everything.
we should totally do a follow up because I want to ask you stuff, but I feel like we'll do a switcheroo one day. I'll just be talking about your awesome game and everything. And
Thank
and I
you.
have been following along by the way, and I'm following your journey, and I think there's
Thanks a
good
lot.
things in your future for sure.
Thank you, Mike.
Happy to be on this channel.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you here. As though you, when I had the idea of also doing the interviews, the one of the first people I thought it was from you. That it
Thank
would
you.
be great to have you here. I think you can share a lot of knowledge and also your experiences, and people can relate to you. So yeah, I think that it's great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Great.
All right. You did it. You made it to the end. Round of applause. I know you probably just fast forwarded here. That's okay. It's a long video. But thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.